Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Right now, Alec Baldwin is trending on Twitter. People are aghast for the reason that Baldwin's defense appears to be that Helena told him to point the gun at her and even to cock the gun. In the words of one Fox News reporter, quote, Alec Baldwin blames the woman he killed for her own death. And it does seem to be that he seems to blame several people, except himself, of course. In this episode, we're going to deal with, first of all, the reaction from Helena's husband, at least from the legal side of things. And then we're also going to look at what actually precipitated all of this. What was Baldwin's response to the lawsuits, and how is he defending himself? So we'll deal with that in some detail. I do think what is very interesting is the timing of Baldwin's response immediately after, just a few days after he appeared in Boulder at that film festival. You can see why it would be very ill-advised to respond in the way that he has just prior to him appearing at the Boulder Film Festival, because that would have overshadowed all of that. Does that make sense? Before we get going with today's episode, please note that I've already put up 66 videos on Alec Baldwin and the Rust incident. If you want to get caught up on some of them, I'll put a playlist in the description. Otherwise, if you want to subscribe to further episodes, click the subscribe icon, hit the notifications bell, like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So the response from Brian Panish of Panish, Shear, Boyle and Ravipudi, and that's the attorneys representing Hutchins' husband Matthew, they've reacted to Baldwin's response as follows, or Baldwin's defense, I guess, in the face of the lawsuits he's facing as follows. Quote, Alec Baldwin once again is trying to avoid liability and accountability for his reckless actions before and on October 21st that resulted in the death of Helena Hutchins, as demonstrated by today's arbitration demand for indemnification from the Rust Production Company. Now, obviously, October 21st was the day that Helena was shot, and that was last year. We're approaching around about 6 months ago that this happened. And there have been a bunch of lawsuits in response. And now we're really getting Baldwin's legal position vis-a-vis these lawsuits. Anyway, Brian Panish goes on to say, quote, Baldwin's disclosure of personal texts with Matt Hutchins is irrelevant to his demand for arbitration and fails to demonstrate anything other than Hutchins's dignity in his engagement with Baldwin. It is shameful that Baldwin claims Hutchins's actions in filing a wrongful death lawsuit derailed the completion of Rust. The only action that ended the film's production was Baldwin's killing of Helena Hutchins. End quote. Wow, so it actually seems now that Baldwin is blaming Helena's husband for derailing the completion of Rust. And now it seems that that is someone else's fault as well. We must remember all of this against the background that the Santa Fe DA's investigation is still ongoing. We still don't know what the result is of the criminal investigation with all of these civil lawsuits currently in the offing. I do think if the criminal investigation recommends charges against Baldwin, I think the case against him is going to be a lot graver. The converse is also true. If they don't recommend charges, then you can imagine the scale and scope of the lawsuits is going to be less in some way. I do think Baldwin going onto ABC News in December was to try to rush everything, the investigation, the controversy, to prod it along, to push it along, to influence it in order to get Rust back in production sooner rather than later. Do you agree with that? I mean, isn't that why he gushed about starting to love the movie business again and loving the script, etc.? That was during that interview. So now let's pay attention to what exactly Baldwin's position is regarding some of these suits. And I must say there's something about the Rust debacle that reminds me of the slick but shallow Jack Lucas from The Fisher King yelling, "I'm not responsible," despite feeling haunted with guilt.
I'm not responsible!
In another scene, Jack, played by the brilliant Jeff Bridges, repeats the mantra, "Forgive me."
Forgive me. Forgive me. Hey, forgive me. Forgive me. Oh! Hey! Forgive me!
And he says that moments before something truly unforgivable happens that upends his life, the words Jack's character says on the radio become adopted wholesale and without interpretation, leading to catastrophe. Jack isn't directly responsible, but what matters is he feels responsible. Is Baldwin a kind of iteration of Jack, trying to outrun, I don't know, his destiny, trying to sidestep his own conscience? And can he? Will he? According to a new arbitration demand, Hutchins, Baldwin claims, instructed Baldwin how to hold the gun. That is a reference to Helena. Quote, "She directed Baldwin to hold the gun higher, to a point where it was directed toward her. She was looking carefully at the monitor and then at Baldwin and then back again as she gave these instructions. In giving and following these instructions, Hutchins and Baldwin shared a core vital belief that the gun was cold and contained no live rounds. Baldwin then asked Hutchins if she wanted him to pull back the hammer on the Colt, and she allegedly said yes. The actor pulled back the hammer, but not far enough to actually cock the gun," the filing said. Well, I'm not sure if I completely believe that, but I think what is quite interesting is it's this idea of Baldwin asks her, should I pull the hammer back? She says yes, so she's telling him what to do. And who is really in charge of this production? Is she in charge or is he in charge? Which personality do you think is in charge of that scene? Is she in charge? Is he in charge? In any event, when Baldwin let go of the hammer, the gun discharged. And I'm not sure I buy that either, but anyway, it goes on to say, Baldwin's lawyer wrote that it was not until the actor was shown a photo of the bullet that had gone through Hutchins and Sousa's bodies that he recognized the object as a live bullet, right? So he's almost saying that until he was actually shown a photo, he didn't really realize what had happened. And I think, according to his lawyer, Luke Nickus, that is his one of his attorneys, he was shocked. He suddenly realized, oh, is that what happened? Oh, but he wasn't shocked by the incident itself. Everybody else in the room was shocked by what had happened at the moment that it happened. But it was like Baldwin only realized when he's shown a photo what had happened, and only then was he shocked.
Are you fucking kidding me?
According to Fox News, something that has now emerged is that the filing has claimed that Alec Baldwin and Helena's husband, Matthew, they attempted to have some sort of relationship after the death of Helena, and this kind of connection that they had was sort of via texts and calls between the two. But then it soured. This kind of went pear-shaped after Alec Baldwin gave that televised interview in December on ABC News. I think it was the 3rd of December, where he kind of flatly denied responsibility. He said he didn't even feel guilty about it. And it was after that that Hutchins filed a lawsuit against Baldwin and gave his own interview quite recently in February. And this is really, in a weird way, the response to that from Baldwin. Baldwin's quite a responsive person, quite a reactive person. And I think the reason he didn't respond or react in a big way at the time, other than putting up that Buddhist quote, was because he had this engagement with the Boulder Film Festival. I think otherwise he would have reacted. And I think the reason we're getting all of this publicity now and all of this reaction now is because that is now over. So I think there's a lot of legal strategy that is at play right now. What is interesting in terms of the filing from Hutchins is it wasn't just talking about the actual shooting, but generally saying or generally accusing Baldwin either of not being aware or not doing anything about safety concerns on set, just in a general sense. Baldwin's response seems to be that an actor can't rule that a gun is safe. And we've actually heard from quite a few actors that that is the job of the actor. We've heard this position from Nicolas Cage, and we've also heard it from George Clooney. So if you wait till the end of the video, you can actually watch the video I've done that addresses Nicolas Cage seems to be criticizing Alec Baldwin in this respect. Something else that has emerged is we've now discovered that Baldwin has at least two attorneys representing him, Aaron Dyer and Luke Nickus. I think it's also quite weird that there was an attempt to finish the movie despite the disaster on set. Apparently, this is kind of Hutchins' fault. The fact that he has launched this lawsuit has now interrupted the attempt to just continue on with the movie regardless. And if you think about it, do you remember Alec Baldwin saying he will never touch a gun again? Well, if you continued making the movie, wouldn't that mean you would necessarily have to touch a gun again? Like not like in a scenario of I won't touch a gun ever. Well, I'm going to touch a gun, in terms of completing this movie. I'm going to touch it right now as I finish acting in this particular role. So according to Fox News, quote, Nickus also described that Baldwin later attempted to persuade the cast and crew to finish the filming of Rust in honor of Hutchins. Do you really think what has been going on has been in honor of Helena? Do you think that would be the purpose, to finish it in honor of Helena, or for other reasons? It goes on to say that a plan was outlined in which an insurance payout as well as the film's profits would go to a settlement for Hutchins' widower and their 9-year-old son. And so it seems that maybe there was a tentative agreement in place until Baldwin went on to ABC News and said things the way that he did, including that kind of like the gun fired itself. Interestingly, Baldwin's defense appears to be that a contractual stipulation means he bears no financial responsibility, but that the respondent should instead be Rust Movie Productions LLC and the producer Ryan Smith. According to the LA Times, quote, the filing details Baldwin's role in the movie, specifying that in small budget films like Rust, he does not have the authority to choose crew or direct non-creative aspects of the production, such as hiring, end quote. That's also something I think he mentioned in the ABC News exclusive back in December. Now, maybe I'm ignorant in matters of the cinema industry, but I would think in a smaller budget scenario, in a smaller production where you have tasks and roles merging, as we saw with The Armorer, wouldn't a producer, and especially a personality like Baldwin, prefer maintaining authority over his project? Wouldn't he prefer to kind of have his finger in all sorts of little pies, making sure that things are done in a certain way? I mean, even the name of the movie is based on the name that the leading actor, the role that he's playing, Harland Rust. That is what he's portraying. So I think all of you will agree that we've now reached the gloves are off stage in terms of these lawsuits and the defense attorneys sort of going at one another and reacting to one another within the court of public opinion. And in general, whose side generally would you say the court of public opinion side is being taken in this regard? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.